I'm sorry to interrupt you, but let's not switch gears yet because I want to tell you one other little story. I had this ambition, I'm not the only one, to wonder whether we could get a spacecraft to Alpha Centauri to send back information about what it finds there. But that's a long ways away. It's on the order of 4.3 light years away. And if you do the math, we're talking like 26 trillion miles or so.
You have to worry about hitting something along the way too, right? I mean, it's don't you need a clean shot to get you start thinking about it's a pretty amazing, there's a lot of moving parts.
This just tells you once again that the speed of light is too damn slow.
Well, it does completely change, but it doesn't make fiber or data centers obsolete. But it does completely change kind of the technology. People use the word quantum internet. They use the word quantum communications, and it applies both to fiber-based communications, but also applies to radio-based or mobile communications as well. And it's fundamental. I mean, it's a gigantic change. And by the way, it's going to happen right around the corner. This isn't something that's 10 or 20 years from now.
What could you do on the crypto side to, it seems like you just keep needing more and more compute power, so it's only going to get a bigger carbon footprint than it has today.
Well, I think that my understanding, and I think you would know better, is, I think part of the hope is that renewables will be able to take up more of that load. The sheer profitability of crypto mining should hopefully, combined with the kind of ESG side of wanting to, only mine green coins or, kind of green types of mining activities, will hopefully push renewables to, be used more in terms of data centers.
Last year probably couldn't have been any better in terms of demand, right? I mean, it's just explosive. So many of the PTC members have been extreme beneficiaries of all this. But what I would say is, do you see that going forward?
I definitely think it's going to continue, grow explosively. Just from our industry, when we started, the best video quality we can get was, half of DVD or quarter of DVD. Then DVD came around. We thought that was great. Then HDTV, we thought, wow, that's a lot of bandwidth, right? And and 4K, 8K coming, all the video production. I think human being, this is the sort of need and the level and appreciation of quality is almost unlimited.
And thank to all the people that made the network work for the last 15 years. Now the data center is the key pillar that we have to fix, because the network, the subsea cable are all there, the bandwidth, they got plenty of that. The data center is the next one that we have to conquer to provide the end users the level of service that is needed going forward.
But I think the great thing about our business is that it seems to be relatively immune to the economic cycle because of the secular demand drivers. Now, that's not to say if there isn't economic growth, our company won't benefit, because it will. Clearly, if the enterprises have more money to spend, they're going to spend it to some extent to upgrade their IT and to continue their digital transformation.
What the hyperscalers want, they want the lowest cost per unit. And so they also look for a 10-year utility of the cable, whereas other companies like RTI, we are looking at what's the long-term viability of the cable over a longer period of time. We expect to get 20, 25 years of utility out of it.
For a long time, everything stopped in Guam or Hawaii, and then everything was about going direct. And now we're seeing more and more people talking about, and we've seen a number of cables being built that, go to Guam, and we're having people propose to us to go to Hawaii. I think some of it's around the regulatory concerns that you talked about, because if you start breaking your network into logical pieces, you have more flexibility if something gets, regulated in a different way than if, you're doing 11,000 kilometer, straight shot from California to Australia. You have limited flexibility.
I guess first and foremost, as I think about the network space and the data center space, if it wasn't clear before, this is core infrastructure.
Yeah.
Period. Full stop. Right? Who'd have said 3, 4, 5 years ago that more solid, more fundamental, more core of infrastructure is a data center and fiber networks versus ports and roads, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this has become the new core.
But I do think the edge moving to tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 markets and pushing that compute, storage, and networking further out away from those core markets is going to happen. We certainly see it in the US because there's all these smaller markets that you're aware of. I know the distances are tougher in Asia. You're starting to see it in Europe, but in the US, I think it's going to unfold. You and I've been around a long time, so we go from centralized to decentralized, back to centralized, back to decentralized. And so I don't think it's going to replace the core. I do think it's going to supplement it. And I think all these things, the Internet of Things, there's more cameras and sensors and things that are getting connected to the internet. And those things are all over the place. They're not just in New York and Dallas and Silicon Valley. They're in every market around the world.
5G and edge and how they come together is going to be quite game changing. The business is still trying to figure out the monetization models for 5G and edge. Customers are looking at it and saying interesting, and they're playing around with the technology, lots of proof of concepts. But the real model hasn't been discovered. I think that's going to be really powerful. But the important thing is to look not just at 5G and edge, you need to look at the technologies it enables, and that's really where the monetization will take place.
I mean, what do you think? Because how much do you do in the emerging markets? Do you see that this will be a trend in the emerging markets, or do you think it's going to be still the pipe and sort of selling pipes and hardware?
I think we'll see innovation from the emerging markets because they are not dependent upon legacy infrastructure like some of the more mature areas of the world.
But what is a kind of common denominator of manufacturing geeks is that we know how to keep the engines running and we stay focused, right? So long as the orders keep coming in the door, we can build stuff at kind of good cost. And one of the things that we've promised ourselves and we've premised the business on over the years is not to be distracted by stuff that goes on around us. Right, so play to our fundamentals. Don't be afraid to buck the trend, etc., etc. And for the large part, that served us pretty well.
So we could probably talk for 3 hours, but
probably yes. No, I can go on forever. So it's best you shut me up while you have a chance.
And the thought is, you have more engineers in India than anywhere else. Does this become the next hotbed of technology? Because there hasn't been many tech companies launched from India, even though you have most of the talent that actually goes overseas and then creates these things. So why do you think that's going to happen, or what's your thoughts?
Well, I would say as we speak, it's already happening for two reasons. One, as you rightly said, we have a lot of IT talent in this country. Number two, the boundaries between countries has collapsed. There is no boundary now between California and this place. So it doesn't matter where you sit, where you work. Number three, there's a lot of capital floating around for startups. And the result is that we are already looking, if you would have recently seen a Credit Suisse report, you are looking at about 100 unicorns out of India in the next 2 years.
Well, Bill, it's a long time since the OTTs were young upstarts, a bit like you and me, maybe, So yeah, for sure they're attracting a huge amount of attention, not just in the States, of course. I mean, I think Europe is, the EU is particularly strong in some of the issues here. Ireland with Facebook recently, and I think it's inevitable that there will be more regulation, and the people who manage that best will be the people who recognize it as coming and prepare for it.
Something is going to happen, and a lot of people are critical and saying that the government hasn't acted quickly. But I just wanted to remind people that in every previous cycle, going back 100, 150 years, it usually takes the government a couple of decades, not a couple of years, to catch up with the technology.